Alright, so now I'm going to teach you how to name and write formulas for acids. This will coincide with practice number 4. So you can have your practice number 4 out, but first we need to take some notes. So have your comp books out. Along with your comp books, I would keep your common polyatomic ion worksheet out, along with this, your periodic table. Alright, so let's begin. I have an open notebook sheet and I want you to write this information down. So we are naming acids. I'm going to make a little chart here, and you can draw this out in your comp book. Does the anion, remember that this vocab word is the second half of your compound, does it contain oxygen? Let's see, I'll just kind of put over here, no, it does not contain oxygen, and what you can do, and yes, it does contain oxygen. So does the second half of the formula contain oxygen? If that's the case, in your formula, if there's no oxygen, you're going to write the prefix hydro. You're going to include the anion root portion of the name, and then you're going to add the suffix ic. So you end up getting a hydro root of the anion, ic, and you add the word acid. Okay, let's say you have an oxygen in the formula and you're trying to name. You can check the ending of the anion name, of the anion name. So I'm going to bring this down because now you need to check the ending of the anion name. So you'll notice in some of the polyatomic ions there are ones that end in ITE. So I'll put an ITE. And then there are ones that end in ATE. I'll put the circle around there in a chart. So if the anion name ended in an ITE, you're going to take the anion or the element root. You're going to add the suffix -us. So you would end up with the root name, I'll put that in parentheses, the root name, us, and the word acid. If you end up with, or you have a root name that originally was an 8, you're going to, let me put the connection there. You're going to have the anion or element root plus ic. So in this case, you would have the root name, the ending or suffix ic, and the word acid. So the big difference here is if you do have oxygen, you have these choices. If you don't have oxygen, remember, you're going to be using the prefix hydro with the root name. So the best way for us to practice the naming and also the writing is through the actual practice. So let's have worksheet 4 out right now. Worksheet 4. Okay, worksheet 4 says naming or writing the formula. So here we have the prefix. Let me get my inking out again. I'll use my favorite color, purple. And I'll change the thickness here. So we have the word hydro. We have the root name. And then we have the word acid. So one thing we need to see is that the word acid happens to be in practice 4. If you see the word acid, acid disassociates in, releases basically hydrogen ions. So we always have a hydrogen ion release. So if you see the word acid, excuse me, there we go. If you see the word acid, you automatically write H as your ion. And then you have the base name chlor. You know it's not an ate or an ite ending. It's actually off the periodic table because of the word hydrogen. My pen's not working, sorry. Because of the word hydrogen. Hydro, excuse me. Hydro is indicating that it's coming off the periodic table. There is no oxygen present, so therefore it's on the periodic table. So your chloric is, I'm delayed in my pen, I apologize. Chlor, and that's a -1. So your final answer then would be HCl. Let's take a look at the second one. The second name is an acid. I'm going to write the word, or I'm sorry, write the symbol H, and it's a plus sign. That's telling me that there's an acid that's dissociating. And then we have acetate. There's no hydro in it, and by the way, it's not on the periodic table. It's one of the ones you had to memorize. It happens to be acetate. That's how the name came from, because you dropped the ending and added IC from that flow chart that we had just drawn out. So the acetate, you're going to write out after you practice C2H3O2. It is a -1, so we don't need to, +1, sorry. We don't actually need the parentheses, but I'm going to show the work just like we've seen before. And your end result is HC2. All right, so I'm going to go down further now on how we write the formulas. So a big indication that there is an acid is the fact that we have a hydrogen starting with. We have H2O, which is amphoteric. That means water can be an acid or a base. That's the only exception. But if we see an H present, we're going to automatically write the word acid. Note that there's no oxygen present, so we're taking that root word from the periodic table. The I stands for iodine, so we're going to start the word with hydro because there's no oxygen. We're going to use the root name of iodine, and we're going to end it with ic. So hydroiodic acid. Let's look at the next one. Starts with an H. I'm going to end the word with acid. Then I need to see that there's an oxygen present in CO3. CO3 is a polyatomic. Those are the ones you had to memorize. So you look up if you haven't memorized CO3 yet. So I'll give you a chance to look it up if you haven't seen CO3. You'll notice it says carbonate. So if it's carbonate, you're going to use the prefix, I'm sorry, not the prefix, the root name of carbon, and then it was 8. The ending becomes IC. To remind you how we figured out the endings, I'm going to show you the flow chart. It was carbonate. You'll see that right here in the 8 form. So you have the ion or anion name with the ic. So the root name is carbonic acid, and they call it carbonic acid. I do have a way to remember, and you're going to laugh with me, hopefully. For the acids, how you can remember which one matches. Let me set the flow chart here, and I'll get my pen out. So if you want to remember the ending I, ate icky acids. So if it ends in 8, the original polyatomic ion, you're going to have the acid end in IC. This one, let me erase that, I had a different way. Take a bite. Ooh, the vampire, because it's Halloween coming up. Took a bite out of us. And of course I didn't spell that right, but that's part of it. This is truly just a way to remember. So ite, if the ending of the polyatomic is ite, you're going to end the acid with us. Remember that if there's an oxygen present and you're using one of the polyatomics, except for the exception, no exception, you're using the no oxygen, there's oxygen present, you're always going to use this method. If there's no oxygen present, you need to use the hydro prefix. All right, so at this time you want to work on practice number 4. You'll notice the back of practice number 4 has a darkened line. At that point, you're practicing everything